You know how every superhero has that one tragic backstory moment? Batman had his parents, Spider-Man had Uncle Ben. Me? I had my PC. Not just a PC, my PC. My 2-year blood, sweat, and Monster Energy drinks project. I'd been saving since freshman year, working every miserable part-time job the American teen economy could throw at me. I flipped burgers in a diner so greasy it should have been classified as an oil spill. I walked Mrs. Henderson's Pomeranian, Muffin, in sub-zero weather while she accidentally forgot to pay me half the time. I mowed lawns, shoveled snow, skipped movie nights, ignored Black Friday deals, and learned to drink gas station coffee without gagging, all for one goal: to buy my dream gaming rig. We're talking about the kind of build that could run Cyberpunk on ultra settings, render a full Pixar film, and possibly launch a small satellite if I pressed the wrong key combination. It was sleek. It was powerful. It was mine. And then, one random Tuesday, it wasn't. I walked into my room after work, ready to unwind with some League of Legends and poor life choices, when I froze. My desk, my beautiful, messy desk, was empty. I'm not talking maybe your mom moved it to clean. I mean empty, empty. No PC, no keyboard, no cables. Just the dust outline where it used to be, like a crime scene chalk body. I ran downstairs. My dad was sitting in his recliner, watching the news like he hadn't just committed a felony in my personal emotional court. "Dad, where's my computer?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Oh, that," he said, like I'd asked where the remote was. "I sold it." You know that record scratch sound effect? Yeah, that went off in my head. "You sold it?" My voice cracked in that humiliating way where you sound like both a furious adult and a prepubescent kid at the same time. "Your sister needed help with her expenses," he said, sipping his beer like he was a saint funding charity work. Expenses. Right. And by expenses, he didn't mean rent, groceries, or tuition. He meant champagne brunches, designer handbags, eyelash extensions, and her third once-in-a-lifetime trip to Cabo this year. My sister has this gift for turning every dollar into Instagram likes, and my dad, oh, my sweet, gullible dad, feeds her habit like she's the NASDAQ, and he's playing with Monopoly money. I looked at my mom for backup, but she just gave me that tight-lipped, don't start smile. The one that says she knows it's wrong, but also knows it's easier to let Dad bulldoze through life like he's the sheriff of this little suburban kingdom. The betrayal hit me so hard, I swear I could hear Taylor Swift's "You Belong With Me" playing in my head, but remixed as "You Betrayed Your Own Kid." It wasn't just about the money. It was the years of grind, the skipped vacations, the frozen fingers walking Muffin at 6 a.m., all erased in one selfish decision. And then came the cherry on this garbage Sunday. My sister waltzed past in a new cashmere scarf. It probably cost more than the GPU I'd saved for. She gave me a little smirk, like this was a game she'd won. That was it. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just unfair. This was toxic love. The kind of family loyalty where loyalty only works one way. You give, they take. End of story. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I just nodded slowly and said, "Got it." Because in my head, a switch had flipped. They had taken my dream machine. Now I was going to take something back. Not in a petty hide the remote way. Not even in a replace the sugar with salt way. No, I was talking about the kind of revenge that gets written about in suburban folklore. The kind where, years later, people at block parties lean in and whisper, "You know what he did, right?" and shake their heads in awe. That was the moment the plan began. I didn't move out that night because that would have been too satisfying, and frankly, the deposit on my new place hadn't cleared yet. But I did start acting like a quiet ghost in my own house. The sort of ghost that labels cables, wipes down surfaces after touching them, and backs up everything twice. My dad strutted around like he'd made a tough family call for the greater good. My mom floated through the kitchen like Switzerland with a casserole. And my sister kept posting grind set quotes under photos of her holding a mimosa at 11 a.m. The whole thing felt like a parody of an inspirational commercial for the American dream. Except the dream was cheating the only kid in the house who saved his own money. I told them I needed space to cool off. What I actually needed was a plan that didn't look like revenge, but smelled exactly like it. I started small. Inventory. Every family has its truth drawer, the place where rubber bands, expired coupons, and a passport-sized emergency lie are kept together. Ours was in the hallway credenza, second drawer. I dug through it late at night with the precision of a raccoon in a Michelin star dumpster. Receipts told stories, dates linked to business trips, Uber logs to places my dad shouldn't have been near during office hours, and a boutique credit slip that lined up with my missing peak C timeline a little too perfectly. If betrayal leaves fingerprints, commerce leaves a trail. I copied everything, filed it by month, and pretended I was normal at breakfast while my dad talked about personal responsibility with the same lips that sold my rig for a sequined weekend in Miami. Meanwhile, I leaned into the conspiracy energy because it made the late nights fun. I built an evidence board on the back of my closet door. Pushpins, red string, sticky notes with code names only I understood. Project Cabo, Neighbor Wi-Fi, Poker Tuesday, Wine Club Intel. I knew it looked dramatic. Okay, insane. But the theater of it kept me focused. Revenge isn't just a dish best served cold. It's a dish best served plated, garnished, and photographed from 3 angles. I also upgraded my soft skills, smiling while gathering intel, nodding while taking mental snapshots, asking innocent questions that sounded like idle curiosity. "How was your tutor session?" I'd ask my sister, and she'd launch into a breathless story that accidentally pinned her in 2 places at once. "Which client were you with?" I'd ask my dad on a Tuesday night when the ESPN app said his favorite team was playing and the Uber app said he was downtown. He'd mumble something about networking. "Yeah, me too, Dad. Networking." I ghosted socially, moved money, and built a yes I'm fine persona. I took extra shifts, signed a lease I could barely afford, and smuggled boxes out in daylight because in suburbia nobody looks twice at a kid hauling stuff to a hatchback. They just assume you're off to college or a cult. In the evenings, I sat on my mattress on the floor like a start-over cliché and rebuilt a PC from scratch, with used parts and humility. It wasn't my dream machine, but it was fast enough to do what I really needed: document, edit, and store. Here's where the satire twisted into something more tender. Not that I was asking for it. I caught my reflection one night. Dark circles, cheap lamp, ramen on the windowsill, and realized I wasn't just mad. I was grieving. Betrayal feels like getting fired from your own family, and toxic love is the HR department that tells you to smile about it. I let myself be wrecked for exactly 1 hour, then put the grief away like laundry and went back to work. The dirt piled up quickly because people who cheat little will cheat big. Scale is just a matter of confidence. The neighbor whose Wi-Fi always dropped around my sister? He had a wedding band tan line and a knack for parking 2 blocks away, which, to be fair, is what any good personal trainer / amateur magician would do if he didn't want to be recognized. Screenshots, timestamps, the harmless ping of a calendar notification. I collected it all like seashells before a storm. The wine club my mom swore was just for fun? It was also a ground zero gossip mill with a membership list that read like a casting call for Real Housewives, Suburbs Edition. They passed around tips on stain removers, summer camps, and discreet lawyers. Nobody said cheating, but everybody said complicated. And in domestic America, complicated is a code word so loud it has its own echo. I wasn't aiming to humiliate my mother, but the machine of the family had gears, and I needed to know where every one of them turned. If you're going to pull a thread, you better know the sweater. Meanwhile, my dad's business trips synced suspiciously well with major poker event calendars and hotel reward points that multiplied like rabbits. He wasn't a criminal. He was a middle-aged adrenaline tourist who convinced himself he deserved a little edge. Men like that will sell a PC and call it sacrifice. They'll also set a budget for brunch and call it mentorship. One night, after watching him blow through a half-hour speech on responsibility and how family works, I wrote in my notebook, "Family should be a harbor, not a loan shark." It felt too poetic, so I crossed it out and replaced it with, "Make him feel something that isn't self-congratulation." The plan needed a stage. Revenge requires an audience, yes, but not just a crowd, an audience with context. Strangers love gossip. Neighbors love proof. The perfect venue arrived by calendar invite. Dad's backyard gala for colleagues and the neighborhood board. A potluck of bragging rights where everyone pretends the HOA isn't an elected monarchy. There'd be speeches. There'd be slideshows. There'd be that garish rented arch you walk under while someone says community. I RSVP'd with a smiley face and felt like a Bond villain. But I didn't want a public bloodbath for bloodbath's sake. I wanted a reveal that made sense, almost merciful in its clarity. That meant details arranged not as a hit list, but as a story. Cheating isn't just infidelity. It's a worldview, cutting corners, moving lines, insisting the rules are suggestions unless they protect you. I arranged the evidence into a narrative arc. Decision, rationalization, escalation, collateral damage. I knew exactly where to place the missing PC, like the prologue gun that finally fires in Act 3. I practiced logistics like a heist. How to swap the gala slideshow for mine. How to keep it technically clean so nobody could claim fake. How to show only what mattered, no gratuitous gotchas. How to give people enough to connect dots without punishing bystanders. If revenge is a scalpel, betrayal is the tumor. Cut what's sick. Leave the rest. During this, my sister tried to rope me back in with a family brunch, which in our house is code for a photo op, plus an argument. I went, because people tell the truth around pancakes. "I know you're mad," she said, "but Dad did what he had to do." I stared at the menu. "Had to?" "You were going to waste that PC on games," she said, like she was narrating a cautionary TikTok. "I'm building my brand." "On whose dime?" I asked, and she blinked like the lights had flickered. "Everyone invests in family differently," she said finally. "You invest with patience." That sentence made me want to flip the table and also made my plan feel righteous. If patience was currency, I had been the family's ATM and someone had been stealing the card. On the way out, I slipped cash to the server and apologized for the mess we didn't make yet. The move-out day came quiet. I hugged my mom at the doorway in the safest way I could, arms that say I love you, and also I am done burning for this. She whispered, "He thinks he's right," which is a sentence that should be carved above every suburban fireplace. I nodded, Because empathy isn't surrender. It's just information. My dad gave me a handshake like we were business partners closing a mediocre deal. "Proud of you, son," he said, because he loves the sound of himself being magnanimous. "Call if you need anything." "I will," I said, and filed it under fiction. New apartment, new routine. Night shifts, early runs, cheap coffee, friends who showed up with folding chairs and bad jokes. I rebuilt my rig piece by piece, sold an old bike to fund a better SSD, learned the muscle memory of leaving people on red. I wasn't becoming colder. I was becoming specific. The word family didn't feel sacred anymore. It felt like a contract, and contracts have clauses. One clause: you don't sell what isn't yours. Another: if you do, the consequences might arrive dressed like a slideshow. I kept testing the moral perimeter: how far to go, what to show, what to leave out. I cut anything that wasn't relevant to my thesis. Not that they were bad people, but that they built a perfect little image on the back of other people's sacrifices. Cheating is entropy. It spreads. Dad's shortcuts bled into money. Sis's shortcuts bled into people. Mom's shortcuts bled into silence. Mine had been obedience. I was done. A week before the gala, I invited 2 friends to my place for a dry run. We ate pizza, watched my cut, and paused every time they made a face. "You sure about this clip?" one asked, pointing at a text thread with the married neighbor. "Enough context?" "I'm not here to ruin a marriage," I said. "I'm here to prove pattern. That's the line." We cut the clip to timestamps and locations, leaving names out. Precision is kinder than rage. It also lands harder. The night before the event, I slept badly and dreamed of my old PC humming in a dark room like a heart behind a wall. I woke up angry and then strangely light. You can love people and refuse their nonsense. That realization arrives like clean air in a room you didn't realize was stuffy. Morning of. I dressed like I was going to a job interview at the Truth. Neat, quiet, unthreatening. I put the drive with the presentation in my inside pocket and a second drive in my shoe, because if you're going to cosplay as a conspiracist, commit. On the way, I passed our old block, the kids on scooters, the cul-de-sac chalked with hopscotch grids, the dads setting up folding tables like soldiers of hospitality. I felt the ache of what I wished our family had been and the relief of not pretending anymore. Revenge, betrayal, toxic love, cheating, family. 5 words that look like a timeline if you stare long enough. I parked 2 streets over. I walked under the rented arch that screamed community in a font called probably papyrus. My dad spotted me and lit up for the crowd, arms wide, the prodigal son returning on cue. "There he is," he announced, and I let him have the theater because I was about to close the show. "Glad you made it," he said in a low voice as we hugged. "Fresh start tonight, yeah?" "Yeah," I said, smiling. "A fresh start." The mic checked. The projector warmed. The neighbors filled their plates. The slideshow file waited on a thumb drive, polite and patient. All that was left was timing, the beat between a toast and a truth. I stood near the laptop, listening for the moment clean as a cut. And when it came, it sounded like my dad saying, "We're so proud of our family." And the word family rang out like a bell I had finally learned how to answer. You ever see one of those slow-motion scenes in a movie where the camera pulls in, the audio fades out, and you just know something irreversible is about to happen? That's exactly what it felt like when my dad wrapped up his speech with the words, "We are the kind of family you can trust." He was standing there, one hand in his pocket like a politician, the other hand clutching a champagne flute, grinning at a crowd of neighbors, co-workers, and HOA board members as if he'd just solved suburban morality. And me? I was standing 10 feet away, one hand in my pocket too, but my pocket had the thumb drive. The one labeled Slides Final 2, because Slides Final was the boring one with pictures of barbecues and family vacations. The crowd applauded politely, the kind of applause that says, "We're just here for the free wine and finger food." My dad gestured to the big projector screen behind him. "Now, my son's put together a little something for us, a family slideshow." Yeah, a family slideshow. Sure. I stepped up, smiled like I was the dutiful son returning to the flock, and plugged in the drive. I queued it up. I heard the laptop fan kick in, as if it knew we were about to break the HOA dress code for no drama within city limits. Slide 1. A wholesome shot of the house in winter, snow on the roof, wreath on the door. Everyone relaxed. My mom exhaled. My dad nodded. My sister pretended to care. Slide 2. My PC. My beautiful, custom-built PC. The caption at the bottom read, "Estimated value, 2 years of part-time jobs, endless coffee, and 0 vacations." The crowd gave a polite chuckle. My dad glanced at me, confused. Slide 3. The eBay listing for my PC. Date stamped. Seller name that was my dad's email. A ripple went through the audience, the way people shift in their seats when they realize the movie might not be a comedy after all. Slide 4. Bank statement snippet. Money in from the sale. Money out the same day to Bellagio Hotel and Casino. Laughter this time, but sharp and mean. Slide 5. My sister in Cabo, holding a champagne glass on a yacht. Caption: Expenses. By slide 6, the noise in the backyard had shifted into a low murmur. My mom's hand was gripping the back of a chair like she was bracing for turbulence. My dad's smile had frozen into that nothing-to-see-here politician face. My sister was texting under the table like she could stop the internet from existing if she just typed fast enough. Then came the real meat. Not every piece of dirt, just enough for people to see the pattern. Uber logs overlapping with poker tournaments. Wine club group text arranging meetups at a bar called The Affair. Screenshots of the married neighbor's helpful late-night visits to fix my sister's Wi-Fi, complete with timestamps and selfies that really should have stayed in the drafts folder. I didn't narrate. I didn't have to. The captions did the talking. Trust is earned. Cheating comes in many flavors. Betrayal tastes familiar when it's served at home. By slide 10, it was dead silent except for the projector fan. Someone dropped a fork. Somewhere in the back, a kid whispered, "Whoa." I ended it with a simple black slide. Family isn't who you're born to. It's who doesn't sell your stuff for brunch money. I clicked out, closed the laptop. The silence lasted a beat too long. Then the voices started, low, sharp, overlapping. The HOA president muttering, "This is concerning." My dad's boss whispering to another guy. My mom quietly telling my dad, "I told you not to." My sister slamming her phone onto the table hard enough to rattle the silverware. I didn't look at them. I just said, "Thanks for letting me share," and started walking toward the side gate. "Wait," my dad called after me. But he didn't sound angry. He sounded panicked. I didn't stop. People moved out of my way like I was carrying something contagious. Maybe I was. Maybe the truth is contagious in places like this, where everyone spends so much time spraying Febreze over rotting carpet. When I hit the sidewalk, the cool night air felt like the first breath after holding it underwater. My heart was pounding, not because I was scared, but because I felt lighter than I had in years. Halfway down the street, my phone buzzed. Text from Mom. You didn't have to do that. Reply, I really did. Another from my sister. You ruined everything. Reply, you're welcome. And then my dad. No text, just a missed call. Twice. I blocked all three. Back at my apartment, I booted up my rebuilt PC. Not the beast they'd stolen, but mine. Every screw tightened by my own hands. I opened a blank document, typed the words, "The end," and then deleted them. Because it wasn't the end. The truth is, revenge isn't always about payback. Sometimes it's just about breaking the spell. Once you see the people who hurt you as they are, the magic trick is over. You don't clap. You just walk away. I poured myself a drink, sat back, and let the screen's glow fill the room. And somewhere back in that perfect little backyard, my family was still trying to explain to the neighbors why the word trust now tasted like champagne and betrayal.